worked all their lives, now dealing with disabling health conditions. We demand the Senate fully fund IHSS, MSSP, SSI, and seek revenues to close the budget shortfalls from those who are profiting from this depression to foot the bill. Thank you very much.
Tries to keep their comments concise, we'll be able to do that.
Hi, my name's Tricia Smith, and not only am I an IHSS worker for my mother, who has been a quadriplegic for 27 years. I know you guys have been sitting in those chairs a while. Think about sitting in a chair for 27 years. She'd be here if it weren't for the, wounds that requires. I'm here as a delegate from the Shasta County Workers Benefit Council, and I don't want to ask, I want to demand that you stop attacking IHSS workers and the recipients and instead fully fund the program. I'm also a full-time college student. I'm a full-time single mother. Like I said, my mother is quadriplegic. It's my stepfather and I that share the share the job of caring for her daily, and that enables her to stay at home and get the care she needs. Our entire family's survival depends on the IHSS program. Most all IHSS recipients need long-term care and should not be forced into institutions for the poor, let alone get cut off and left to fend for themselves. That doesn't seem to make any sense to me. The governor's proposal violates the State Welfare and Institutions Code by cutting hours arbitrarily and endangering recipients' lives. A 12% cut in care would be not only dangerous to the recipients' health and their quality of life, but the only result would be that they would need more care. We've heard this all day long. My mother has a urostomy bag. It needs to be changed daily. That takes time, and in her 3.6 hour cut, she should I be able to urinate or not, She also requires bowel care, and I don't know if you guys know what that is, but
explain it.
Yeah, it's 24-hour care. She's prone to serious wound infections that spread rapidly, which require supervision and a clean environment to prevent them. We have to constantly do laundry, keep the home environment clean to prevent these infections. If my stepfather were forced to go outside the home, he would have to neglect her, and she'd certainly get an infection, which would cost her life. She's already lost one leg 15 years ago from that same type of infection through lack of care. IHSS cuts to the state are about 5 times less. IHSS costs the state about 5 times less than institutionalizing a person. So the governor said he wanted, what are the solutions? Come with me. What are the solutions? Show me the money, right? So, 1, members of our councils have testified at this Capitol for over 20 years, calling for the state to abolish enterprise zones. This corporate welfare scheme costs the state almost $600 million a year. And nearly all of the benefit goes to the largest corporations. The governor has called for eliminating these zones in the current budget, which, according to the Public Policy Institute of California, costs California over $500 million each year in lost tax revenues.
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up,
Or
please.
2, you can issue a moratorium on passing legislation creating further tax breaks for major corporations or their proxies as long as the state deficit exists. Fully fund public services of all types, IHSS, schools, medical, dental, fire protection, etc., before corporate welfare. 3, you can demand repayment for the energy companies for the billions of dollars that they fleeced from American taxpayers during the fabricated energy crisis of 2001. Or 4, you can demand federal reimbursement as required by the Federal Stafford Act of millions spent in stopping the wildfires and for economic recovery in federal disaster areas throughout California hit by calamity over the past 5 years. You can start there. I demand the state follow its own laws and codes and stop balancing the budget on the backs of IHSS workers and their recipients, and instead take a ways and means approach to find funds to fully fund the IHSS program to meet the needs of California's most dependent people. Thank you.
Next, please.
Hi, I'm Patricia Dobbs, and
Hi,
thank you
Patricia.
for allowing us to speak. I've been an aide for 40 years. I've taken care of my mother for 10, or I should say 7.5, and then all 10 years for IHHS. At any rate, according to the State Welfare and Institutions Code and the Department of Social Services Manual of Policies and Procedures, those who qualify for IHSS are those who are unable to perform the services themselves and who cannot safely remain in their homes unless their services are provided. The only way people can get on IHSS is if their doctor determines they need it. The state's proposed cuts to IHSS violate the Welfare Institution Code 12300A and the Department's Social Services policies. A federal court injunction stopped the state from cutting care last October of 25% of the recipients, which is far less than you are considering now. Did you read the judge's decision? Judge Claudia Wilkinson said that counselors who work with IHSS recipients predict a humanitarian disaster and premature deaths if these cuts go through. Some individuals who lose their IHSS may neglect to take care of vital medications or take them improperly without IHSS caregiver to transport recipients to doctor's appointments. They will go without essential care. Some of the recipients will try to clean their house, and as a lack of them being able to do it properly will be hurt. The budget crisis does not excuse ongoing violations of federal law. In-home care is considerably less expensive than institutional care, considering my mother's is $5,000 a month now. There are solutions to the budget problems that do not rely on balancing the budget on the backs of the poor and those who can least afford it. For example, the state's largest development program, enterprise zones are bleeding the state of $500 million every year. And in my county, Shasta County, we are losing $15 million in local enterprise zones as a result of the state program. But if you pay these workers a living wage, those tax dollars will go right back into the local community. And I thank you for letting me speak again. Thank you.
We're going to have one more speaker, and then we need to take we're not going to break, but we're going to take a moment to actually take an action before we lose a quorum. Then I'm going to remain. But if we want to get everybody to speak, I just ask everyone to be sensitive and try to be as concise as possible and deal with the issues in front of us, if you could, the things that we have control over. I'd love to tax corporations more, but I don't have the ability to do it. Go ahead.
My name is Benjamin McElhaney. I'm an aerospace technician from Santa Rosa. My occupational duties bring me into contact with a variety of chemicals and materials that possess a hazardous potential on a daily basis. Although safe practices are now in place, this was not always the case. Many of the people who pioneered the industry suffer from a wide array of cancers and ailments that make day-to-day life a challenge. These are the people who established many of the safeguards for our country and explored new frontiers that benefit the entire race. We should return the favor by granting them the care that they need. However, I do understand that California cannot continue on as it has, and that something needs to be cut. With the elimination of corporate tax breaks, we can fully fund IHSS and pay its workers a fair and living wage. Cut a policy that protects none of our elders and capacitates none of our disabled. Save 400,000 jobs and protect the health of 500,000 more. Please recall your responsibility as a servant of the people and do the right thing.
Thank you, sir. All right, so just briefly, and I'll ask people to continue to come up and take those last two seats before we lose our quorum. On the IHSS items, we're keeping item number 5 open for further discussion. Number 6, open for further discussion. Number 7, we have some motions for that I'll come back to. Number 8, we have a motion. Then number 9, we are holding open. So on item number, let's see, 7. Thank you, Dr. Emerson. And these are on page 18 and 20. The motion is to reject any positions that are requested in order to support implementation of fingerprinting IHSS consumers as a condition of eligibility and/or including fingerprints on time cards. The motion also includes we are going to repeal the underlying statutory requirements for consumer fingerprinting and the inclusion of fingerprints on time cards, and reject without prejudice the remaining positions requested to assist with the implementation of the recent changes to the IHSS program. So the last part of the motion allow us to have more discussion as the LAO has suggested. And is there any dissent on any of that? Senator Emerson is a no. Senator Alquist and Senator DeSaulnier are ayes. That's 2-1. We'll go back to public comment. So just so everybody's, I'm sorry. And on motion on a motion on page 20 for the state staff for IHSS automation system. The motion is to reject the request. Aye. That's 3-0. So on those two items, we took action. On everything else, we're going to continue the discussion. I just want to thank both of my colleagues. I know that we're all very busy in this tight time frame, as are you. But if you have to leave, I understand. I will stay here. Would really like to get through in the next half hour to 45 minutes. We would like to have all the testimony on the record. So again, if we can hold it to about 1 minute. If you have written material, if you could submit it and summarize, that would be great. Thank you. Ma'am.
Hi. My name is Trina Bumpers, and I'm speaking today as a delegate of the Sacramento Workers Benefit Council. I'm pursuing to sign up with IHSS to be a caregiver for my mother, who is 56 years old and unable to care for herself due to high blood pressure that caused her to have a massive stroke. The cuts the governor is proposing to in-home supportive services are just wrong. You're cutting back on something low-income people really rely on. On the cutbacks that are already going in next week, you say you give us a choice, that the elders and disabled get to choose what essential services to go without. I've been providing care for my mother for 7 years since I was 14 years old. She needs more care, not less, to live safely. If she chooses to cut any of these essential services, she's just choosing how she will injure herself. That is not a choice anyone should have to make in the richest country in the world. If you take $500 million from IHSS and cut cut off the care by relatives, many recipients will die and newly unemployed care workers will suffer. Already 2 out of 5 people in California live in poverty. There are no jobs out there. If you vote for cutting in-home supportive services, you would have us abandon our recipients or work for no pay. I want to point out 2 things. This will not happen if there were living wages for jobs in-home care workers to begin with, and if workers got paid on time. Let's talk about what's really going on. We live in a time when we are threatened as care workers, when we are trying to make an honest living while a couple of $1 billion in corporate tax breaks is not even under discussion. The bailouts, the corporate welfare, they continue and have never trickled down to us. We have to rethink this day's priority because you're talking about cutting a program that will hit hundreds of thousands of Californians directly and millions more indirectly. I speak to this body with authority and demand and the state Senate vote no on any and all cuts and fully fund in-home supportive services. Thank you.
Hi. Excuse me. I'll keep this as brief as I can because I know you've been up here a long time. I'm an in-home worker. I take care of my 35-year-old son. My name's Victoria Avante, by the way. And when you hear autism, some other people mention that. I don't know how familiar you are with it. There's different degrees. He's quite autistic. He walk in front of a moving car. He can't add 1-on-1. He wouldn't know how to dial 911. If he managed to, they wouldn't understand him. We're talking about somebody that needs care 24 hours a day. He can't be left alone. So on that note, what I did was I brought along the timesheet, or whatever you call it, the way they divvy up the hours, right? Now, you got to keep in mind 24-hour care, okay? And under the heading, and this is before the cut came in, okay, so this is pre-February. Before the cut came in, under domestic service, and now they're talking clean floors, watch kitchen counters, stoves, refrigerators, bathrooms, and unfortunately some of these folks have real bathroom problems. If you get my drift, you're doing a lot of bathroom cleaning. Store food supplies, take out garbage, dust, pick up, bring in fuel, that's kind of ironic. Change and make the beds, and miscellaneous. Now, what they've allowed somebody like myself, 24-hour day care, they have given me 2 hours a month, half-hour a week, 7 days a week. Nobody can do this type. Nobody. There's nobody who can do this. They have allotted 10 minutes to go to a doctor's appointment. 10 minutes a week. Fortunately, he's physically healthy that way. And then I won't go through them all, obviously, to save some time. The other one that you'd be interested in, a half hour to go to a grocery store and do all the shopping you need for the whole week. I can't even get to a grocery store and get home in a half hour, let alone do the shop. It's not even humanly possible. And it goes on and on. So that's just kind of a general idea of what the real numbers are and what we're dealing with. The other thing I just want to hit on real quick, and it's been covered slightly before, but most of us have had to give up quote-unquote regular jobs. I worked for the phone company for a lot of years, as well as State Farm. I also taught in the school district. I've had to switch jobs and quit jobs because I had to be with my son, okay, because there was nobody to call. There's nobody to get. And even if you made a decent income, you're going to pay somebody that you hope takes care of your kid correctly, and you're going to pay him a lot of your income to take care of your kid. It is a major problem. We don't get retirement. We don't get sick days. We don't get vacation days. We don't get... And most people don't get any health coverage because, as you know, it's by hours. The coverage that we get is very poor, and there's no cost of living increase. And on top, they want to cut the hours of these folks. I mean, it's really a serious problem. And I know you've heard all these stories, and really, you give up the ability to make a normal, decent living with this. So I hope that you'll be able to convince them not to do this to us. There's other ways to be able to take care of this. Please don't do it like this. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Marilla Arguelles, and I've been a home care provider, and I'm with ULTCW. I've cared for my son for the last 33 years because he got a very deadly brain virus when he was 10. Several times he's been hospitalized, and the nurses always tell us that the reason he's alive and in such good health and able to go out into the community is because we care for him at home. But I feel the state is actually penalizing us for this desire to keep him as healthy as possible because they want us to work without compensation. The money that I make goes to provide things that the state won't give him that keep him alive. He needs an all-organic diet because he's on a tube feeding, a J tube. He can't absorb nutrients regularly. The state would give us a soy formula that was prescribed for him that he's allergic to that was killing him, and they will give him the syringes to administer that. But they won't give us the syringes to administer the organic food that we buy with my salary. So there's some things in here that just don't make sense. The only alternative we have is a trach ward in a skilled nursing facility where most of the residents are quadriplegics. So, of course, I don't want that. I want you to help us look for ways to find the actual fraud that's in the system. And I have a couple of suggestions that I want to tell you about. I don't think that the fraud is with the recipients. I don't think it's with the providers. I think there's a huge amount of fraud being committed with medical equipment and the charges that are made for services. Last week, my son needed a break for his very heavy wheelchair that he goes out. He keeps it positioning so he doesn't get a hump on his back, and it works. They came from Sunnyvale, one technician for 300 patients. They charged $234 to drive up from Sunnyvale and put this $40, supposedly, it actually should have cost $4, device on his wheelchair. Nobody's investigating that kind of abuse. There's a lot that could be cut, and I think that California could become a forerunner. For instance, do you know that in Japan, a CAT scan costs $98 to provide? That's because Japan's government negotiates with the providers every year to set the rates. We need to start doing things like that and stop making these cuts. on the backs of families. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brenda Jackson. I'm from Alameda County. I'm a home care provider and I'm with ULTCW SEIU. I say that I'm a provider, but I would like to say I'm a professional in home care provider. And I say that because I don't think that you realize the job that the home care provider does is a profession. A lot of us do not work, take care of our relatives. We actually leave our home. We use gas that's not covered. We pay for that for ourselves. We also, when I go to work, I wear scrubs, and I do that so I'm visible. I want you to know that a lot of us, you look at us as invisible people. We're invisible to you because we're not dressed. You don't see us. We're walking down the street. Everybody I bump into could be a provider, but nobody would know that. So I wear my scrubs just so I can be visible. I wear my scrubs because I'm a professional, and I wear my scrubs because I'm part of a workforce. And I feel like if you looked at us as individuals and not an array of colors of purple or green, you'll see a person that's actually taking care of somebody that needs service. We provide a service for people that we care about, and we're asking for you to care about us. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Hannah Carpolo. I am also a member of ULTCW. I've been a home care worker for IHSS for 30 years. I'm also a member of Action for IHSS and a member of QUIDO, which stands for Communities United in Defense of Olmsted. You've heard a little bit about Olmsted today. It is a 1999 Supreme Court decision on the ADA requiring public entities to administer their services, programs, and activities in the most integrated setting appropriate to the needs of qualified individuals with disabilities. So if for no other reason than to comply with federal law, we can't cut IHSS. It's not acceptable. So if being poor is such a crime that you fall into the category of being, and if you fall into the category of being poor and disabled, then you're forced from your home. You could be forced into an institution, and that's a real crime. And another crime is that the state isn't even going to save any money by doing this. We lose matching funds. There's an increase in emergency room visits, and there's not even enough nursing home beds in the state now to take care of everyone should we have to institutionalize them. And who's going to benefit from building more nursing homes? The cuts this isn't a problem of spending. This is a problem of revenue. We have to tax corporations. We have to repeal Proposition 13. We have to tax the oil that's extracted from our land. And it's just a real insult to myself and to the elderly people and people with disabilities who happen to be poor, and to low-wage earners like myself who often dedicate their lives to this work. So I urge you to look at other possibilities.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
My name is Greg Thompson. I'm the Executive Director of LA County's Public Authority, and thank you, members that remained. I appreciate that. I've come to each one of your offices and talked to your staff and discussed statistical data that clearly demonstrate the multiple layers of bureaucratic efforts, such as a criminal background checks designed to decrease IHSS's caseload, are totally ineffective and morally wrong. False accusations of fraud created to influence the public and ease the conscience of those cutting IHS is an outrage. It's disrespecting seniors, those of us living with a disability, and the workers who provide the valuable services. In LA County, we did 156,000 background checks and disqualified 129. 156,000, and we disqualified 129. We also did an analysis of the new Tier 2 crimes that went into place yesterday, and we looked at 125,000, and we found that there will be about 1.29% disqualified. I encourage you to learn from the mistakes that were made in 2010. Millions of dollars were spent, and the IHS caseload has remained basically the same. Do not allow this administration to continue to waste more money and create more obstacles for the growing need that you cannot stop. The need for community care will continue to grow, and until you stop ignoring this fact and actually do something to this deficit will continue to increase and millions will suffer. I recommend that you take a cost analysis, solution-based approach. Stop wasting money trying to cut IHSS. Utilize federal resources, partner with stakeholders and other community agencies to find a way to meet the needs of the people that you serve. And in closing, if you look at LA County, the Department of Public Social Services received $10 million to hunt for fraud, and the DA's received about $2.5 million. I urge you to look and see what kind of bang for your buck you got with that. And finally, as much as I respect and have full confidence in the panel that spoke before us, there was one piece missing. There's 440,000 IHS recipients in California, and not one of them was sitting up there on that stakeholders panel. So in the future, if you're going to call it a stakeholders panel, please, I encourage you to include the true stakeholders. Thank you.
Mr. Thompson. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. We will do that. Point well taken. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Janie Whiteford. I have from Santa Clara County. I am sitting for 10 years on the advisory committee. I also was instrumental and president of SECA, which is a statewide organization of advisory committees. I'm only going to speak to one area of the cuts, and that's the cuts to the advisory committee. And thank you very much for your comments on that earlier. The advisory committees represent all those consumers, 460,000 consumers throughout the state who cannot speak for themselves. And SECA is the statewide organization that also speaks for them. Many of these consumers simply cannot, because of whether it be cognitive or physical disabilities, that can't speak for themselves. We've done great work in the years that many of us have been functioning. We give recommendations to our boards of supervisors, to any entity in the state or in the county or in the state that has anything to do with IHSS. That's why I'm here today, to speak to you. I think it's imperative that this voice not go away. It's especially imperative if you're looking at realignment. If realignment goes from the counties to the state for IHSS, as the plan is for the next wave of realignment issues, there will be no consumer voice at all. That will totally get lost. And the advisory committees and SECA are the only entities in the state that can speak to that voice. Another thing, when Karen Kiesler spoke from CAPA, she mentioned that the $53,000 that we get, truly is such a minuscule amount of money in the overall budget. But many advisory committees do not spend that amount of money. So I think that if you want to save some, look at a reduction, not in a whole slash in the whole budget. Because if you lose the mandate, I guarantee you there are only about 15 counties in this state that would continue to have advisory committees. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will do our best. And then if you folks could come up and take seats here so we can go to the podium, and then these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seats. And then we'll start with the speaker at the podium first. And
I'll be later.
Okay. Go ahead. Please start.
Mi nombre es María Santillán y cuido a mi hijo Sergio. Quiero aprovechar la oportunidad para solicitar, por favor, no más recortes a nuestros programas, ya que estos afectan principalmente a nuestros hijos, ya que al recortar las horas tendremos que buscar trabajo fuera de casa, descuidándolo en lo cual repercutiría directamente a su salud. Además, si lo pusiera en una casa de convalecencia, ustedes tendrían que pagar más y él no tendría el cuidado de calidad que tiene con nosotros. Y nosotros le brindamos a mi hijo, y mi hijo es cuadraplégico y tiene las principales células muertas del cerebro, y él necesita cuidado las 24 horas del día. Por favor, tengan un poco de sensibilidad hacia nosotros. Necesitamos los servicios. Yo sé que es bastante lo que tienen que hacer ustedes, pero please, no more court.
My name is Maria Santillan, and I care for my son, Sergio. I want to take this opportunity to ask you to please not cut this program. Cutting hours will primarily affect my son because I will have to look for employment and leave my son unattended. If I was forced to put my son in a nursing home, it would cost the state more money, and he would not receive the quality care that I can provide. My son is a quadriplegic and requires 24-hour care. Please try to be sensitive to our needs. Please don't cut any more hours. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Kelly Everhart. I'm a home care worker from Fresno. This is my client, Carl Everhart, my husband. He has a double amputee. He's a veteran. He has multiple health problems. Cutting the program 3% hurt me bad, but cutting it more to 12% would take away my insurance personally. Right now, I have my insurance. I'm one of the lucky ones that have insurance, and cutting me down to 12% more I would not be able to afford my insurance premiums. I would not be able to afford going to the doctor, the co-payments for the insurance, and cutting that would do that. And also, 3.6%, like I said, he has multiple problems. So, like before me, people have said, what does he decide that he doesn't need to be done? I have to help him with the restroom. I have to help him clean himself. So I just beg you not to cut anymore because not only, like I said, I'm one of the lucky ones who have medical insurance, and most of us don't have medical insurance, and cutting will not only take us, put us onto the unemployment, but they will also put us on where we can't have insurance, because most of us can't get Medi-Cal or anything like that. So I just beg you not to cut anymore. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Cynthia Holly from Fresno.
Maybe you can move the microphone a little bit closer so people can hear
I'm
you.
Cynthia Holly from Fresno, the UHF office there. And I come with a personal note. I wouldn't know what I would have done without IHS. I have a daughter who's been ill since 8, who to date has, and she's 27, has had 33 surgeries. Imagine your child being cut from the inside of her groin all the way up past her rectum, on up past the crack of her behind, and you having to care for her needs with bandages, and then you get this cut. Well, we're no longer covering your bandages. You have to purchase those yourself. We went into great debt purchasing those bandages. To someone else, it may seem like it's a waste, but at $5 and $8, now $8 for a little package like this of bandages, we have to cover for her. We need 4 at least of these, and it's just hurtful, the cuts that keep coming. Her Social Security, hers is being cut. Then my working for her, that's being cut. I've been cut by $200. I hear all the figures floating around, but what I see is a child that, from a child, now an adult, has really suffered over the years, and IHS has been the key to holding it all together for us, as well as the union that has been there to even find work and help me through. Helping with classes, just anything I needed. I know it's politics or politicians, you have to work through these things, but we're the ones that are really, really hurting. We're watching our family members. I take care of 3 family members, 2 now that have passed away, my husband and my father. And it's devastating to have to hear someone, they're at the hospital, they're rushing through because they have so many patients they have to take care of. And I'm looking at my baby who was 10 at the time. They're saying, well, come on. And they're pushing her, and she's in pain. She's feeling all of this. But we as parents or as grandparents or whatever, we're taking care of them because we're the ones that feel it and know what they need and will give them the most possible love. But I'm not less of a person because I'm working for my child. I'm more of one because I had to quit a paying job, a good paying job, to stay home and take care of my baby. Couldn't nobody else do it but me. And so I just ask that you would not cut us anymore because we just can't afford it.
Mr. Chair, my name is Chris Jensen, Resources for Independent Living. just wanted to add a little bit more as to what my life looks like, is that we see about between 800 to 1,000 people annually, and the majority of those people utilize IHSS, and we help them provide services for hiring and selecting providers, being able to manage their notice of action. We see there's just a lot of activity around that, and there's a lot of concern going forward and a lot of fear and trepidation around all these different cuts. And we don't even know how the 3.6 reduction is going to play out, because that just started on the 1st. It may not play out so well, and to have an additional 8.4, it could just exacerbate whatever potential problems hanging out there on the horizon. A lot's been said, and I can't really add, to anything that anybody said. They've said it so much better than I could. It's unfortunate that this particular committee is limited in scope. But when the state decides not to cut these IHSS proposals, when they decide not to do it, and I'm convinced they're not going to do it, because I have faith and hope in the way things work, there has to be some type of an appropriation to pay for it. So the discussion of cuts and the discussion on revenues cannot be separated. They go together, and somehow we need to create a forum for that. So we're not just sitting here talking about cuts, but we're also sitting here talking about finding revenue in order to make sure that these horrible, horrible cuts don't have to take place. So I don't know the mechanism for that, but definitely I would suggest looking into that. The only other thing is that with the a couple things. One is with the supplemental care request. We've heard that it is to help make sure that the most frail or the very frail still receive services. But I guess if you're only frail, well then good luck, have a nice day, and I hope things work out for you. I don't know how we can throw frail people under the bus in saying we're protecting the most frail. I don't know how we can in good conscience do that. The only other thing, and I will end because I don't want to take up a lot of time, the California Tax Reform Association is a wonderful, wonderful organization. They do, Lenny Goldberg does a great job in doing a lot of assessments. He came out with something on February 25th that shows 10 different tax policies that would create $20 billion, and I know raising revenue is not always the easiest thing to do, and given the way our legislature is made up. But what he says is at the end of it, and I'll end with this, many of these tax changes would have little or no negative economic impact, particularly when contrasted to a state unable to finance infrastructure, that allows its higher education system and schools to deteriorate, that forces cutbacks in local government, and that shreds its safety net for its poorest citizens. So I would suggest that any time we do any type of analysis that the California Tax Reform Association is looked into. Thank you.
We always listen to Lenny. Yes, sir.
Well, excuse me. Bruce Walker, Santa Cruz. I've been a home health care practitioner for approximately 30 years. I started out with the IHSS program. My first patients, I took care of 2 quadriplegics in their home. I basically ended up being on call for 24 hours with the 2 quadriplegics. I want to throw that out to you that more work would be done with folks in the home and not out of the home. I've been thinking recently about how hypocritical really our society is in the fact that we fund hospitals and doctors to save people. We fund them to heal them to a point where they can go home, but then what happens to them when they go home? Are we going to shove them away again? Are they going to be shoved away as society used to do, not liking to look at handicapped folks, not liking to acknowledge that they are here? That is something that us as a society really needs to look at. And I would like to see not be done anymore. I worked in some convalescent hospitals. These are very generalized statements that are made about them. There are some good hospitals out there. I ended up having 18 patients that I was supposed to get done in 8 hours, which was really impossible for me to do. I got in trouble because I wouldn't clock out on time. My mind would not let me just leave patients left in bed with their excrements there, to get more bed sores. That is where I've run into the worst bed sores that I've ever seen, is the lack of care in some of these facilities. I also am wondering how much money is being spent on both sides of this here to fight this. How much money is being wasted for the fight on this? There really does not deserve to be a fight with this. These are people. I'm glad to hear that you have gone and discovered what it is like to be this way, as you stated, that you have done that. And I wanted to finish this up by just saying, remember the faces of the people that you have seen here today. Remember faces of people that you see on the sidewalks that are out there, that are handicapped, that are taking care of the handicapped when you do vote for these for this budget. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Astrid Zuniga. I'm from Stanislaus County, and I'm a provider for 2 individuals, one of which is my son, who is autistic with severe aggressive tendencies, which, by the way, is a disability that has grown 600% in the last decade. My story is simple. The old man upstairs dealt me a hand and dealt all these other individuals a hand. We didn't ask to get old, be crippled, or have a loved one with disabilities. But that is what it is, and we are dealing with it. Now, this program allows us to have the right to be cared for or to care for an individual in the comfort of our homes, which, as far as I'm concerned, our elderly have earned it, and it is our moral obligation to care for our disabled. Now, these additional cuts that are being proposed are truly unnecessary. All this will do is make matters worse for the state's pockets by sending people to the unemployment and welfare lines, but it will also jeopardize the safety of the individuals that we care for by them not receiving the adequate care they deserve. These cuts will have such a huge trickle effect, more than I truly think some of the people in the legislature understand. You will see an increased deficit. You will see a rise in poverty. Is that what the government of California wants to be recognized for? For putting our most vulnerable individuals at risk? Is that the example they want to set for the world to see? I would hope that when you all make a decision on this program, that you would step back and think, what if that was me? What if that was someone in my family? Could I put a price tag on life? Would I go that extra mile? And I hope that after hearing all these testimonies today, that you realize the underlying effects these cuts will have. Thank you for your time and consideration on this matter.
Hello, my name is Diane Mejia Green. I am from Merced. I'm here as a member of United Domestic Workers of America. I am opposing the budget cuts to the IHSS program. This would be a hardship as a double factor for me as a provider and also for my client. That means less hours that I can take care of my client. That means she could be in harm's way. We are here to make sure that our clients are safe. We sign documents to make sure that we protect our clients. How can we do our job safely if they are unsafe in their homes? We do this not because of the money. Most of us make a little bit over minimum wage. I know you, sir, Mr. Chairman, make more than minimum wage. So how can we actually make sure that she is safe with the little bit of money that we get? All what we're asking, what is fair. We deserve what we have now. Do not cut us back. You're doing a double cut, not only to our clients, but to ourselves. We save the state money by not having them put in homes. Please take it into consideration. You might be next in line to be needing in-home supported services. So please take that into consideration.
Yes, my name's Ed Huddleston. I am the chairman of United Domestic Workers in Merced County. I'm just here to speak on what's going on with the program. We're supposed to be a nation, a Christian nation. According to that, there's a song that a lot of people sing at events, God Bless America. So in order for God to bless America, we need to start doing what God has asked us to do. and that is to take care of the lame, the sick, the poor, and the elderly. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Tammy Ferreira. I am from Stanislaus. I am also a sister of a developmentally disabled brother. My mother was a great advocate for the handicapped. My brother was raised in the state hospitals, and when my brother was born, you had a developmentally disabled child, you were told to place him in the state hospital and forget about him. Well, some bad things happened to my brother. So my mom just passed away a few years ago. I ran a program for many years for the developmentally disabled. When my mother passed away, I needed to be home for my brother. So I'm asking you, we are here to propose no more cuts on the IHSS program. This is a much-needed program. This program is very cost-effective to our community, to the taxpayers. This program allows our loved ones to reside in their own homes with some dignity and provides them with a better quality of life. This program has saved the taxpayers millions of dollars, not the other way around. We oppose any more cuts. We do propose that the committee and the legislator of the government really look into the facts. Do a cost comparison. Check it out. Get the facts. Convalescent versus IHSS. State hospital care homes for the disabled versus IHSS. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that IHSS is a very cost-effective and has saved the taxpayers millions already. If IHSS programs are cut anymore, that is going to be a disaster for all of California.
Just take a second and make sure he's okay.
Yeah, oh, of course. Yeah, text camera. Yeah. Oh, my heart.
Why don't you take a seat, sir, and we will take time at the appropriate time. That's okay.
That's okay.
Let him sit down. Let's continue with the testimony, make sure he's okay, and then when we have it, why don't we take a mobile mic to him, or if he would prefer to come up, we'll do that. So go ahead, ma'am.
Okay. Sorry. If this IHSS program are cut anymore, there's going to be a disaster for all of California. Providers are going to be left with no other choice to look for work elsewhere, seek public assistance, higher unemployment rates, and etc. Family members and care providers are going to have no other choice but to place their loved ones, and there is not enough care homes, convalescents, or state hospitals to care for our loved ones. The government is going to have some really big problems. So I propose if they cut IHSS, bring all of the recipients to the Capitol and let them figure out how to clean up the mess they created.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
Good afternoon. My name is Evelyn Dorsey, and I'm with UDW Merced, local union. And I'm here because I was a patient. I had 3 brain surgeries in 1 year, and I feel good. But anyway, I just thank God for how He has blessed me. And I promised Him that once I recover, I would be willing to help those that are less fortunate than myself. So I'm just here to add to what others have said, that we do need to keep our in-home care for as long as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Glad you're okay. Yes, sir.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for your patience and waiting for us and being here and your time. And I'm just going to keep it short and simple and say, look, I get 26 hours a month to take care of an 83-year-old woman. That includes cooking 3 meals a day, laundry. You've heard it all from everybody else. That includes everything, paying her bills and doing her yard work when asked and all of that. But I make $8.12 a day. I'd like to ask you, how many people would work for $8.12 a day and do what I do? We already do far more than we're being paid for. All of us, everybody here. There's not a person here that doesn't work far more than they're getting paid for. And I ask, why would you cut a program that's actually cost effective? There's, we talk about waste, we talk about fraud. Well, the biggest waste and the biggest fraud is where the biggest money is. And we're chump change. So with this next round of proposed budget cuts and our county proposed cuts, do you know that they'll cut my wages 26.4%? Now, if you were to cut 5% from one person making $100,000 a year, you could pay for 100 of me? You could multiply me by 100 if you cut 5% from the top instead of the bottom. Okay? That's my point. That's all there is to it. You can, there are ways to do it. We've all seen the ADOT, or the Department of Transportation, where there's 8 guys standing around watching one guy shovel a little bit of asphalt into the pothole, and it takes them all day to do it. That's waste. That's fraud. That's stealing. They're stealing time from us. There's a lot of ways that you can find theft, that you can find fraud, that you can find laziness in these programs that have huge budgets. And then you can give us all a raise.
Thank you, sir. It's all yours.
Hello, my name is Luis, and I am speaking for an IHS recipient from Santa Cruz. She cannot be here today, but her name is Ray Ellen Leonard. She was diagnosed in 1975 with a neurological degenerative progressive disease named Friedreich's ataxia, which has progressed to the point that she now needs help dressing, bathing, preparing her food, and getting into and out of bed. She lives alone and has 3 caregivers for a total of 183 hours a week. Despite her many limitations, she's active in the community. She's on the Santa Cruz IHS Advisory Commission. Also, she volunteers on a weekly basis at a soup kitchen and food pantry, and through her church, where she visits with the elderly. She would not be able to live and contributing life without her caregivers. The IHSS program helps us long-term disabled people meet our most basic needs. The alternative is to be in a nursing home, which would, of course, be much more costly, and it would take away our independence and self-respect.
Thanks, Luis. Nicely done.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Arcelia Carrillo, and I have a letter from a recipient, but it's in Spanish, and she wrote it to the governor and representatives, and it's in Spanish. Presente, me dirijo a usted solicitarle mantenga intacto el programa IHS. Es vital. Importancia mantener las horas. En lo personal, necesito ayuda para mis citas médicas, recoger mis múltiples medicinas, así como ayuda para limpiar, así como ayuda personal para respirar, vestirme, subir y bajar de la cama, y preparación de alimentos, lavar y comprar alimentos y guardarlos. Mis problemas son muchos de salud: alta presión, artritis, asma, depresión, veces doble visión, mareos, dolores en la espalda, fractura de brazo izquierdo y rodilla izquierda. Señor gobernador, le dimos nuestro voto porque necesitamos un gobierno que nos ayude y nos proteja, que mantenga y administre programas para personas mayores y deshabilitadas. Le ruego que no quiten el programa de IHS. Atentamente, Alicia López Ramos. She's begging to have the IHS program, and she's very ill at home, so she couldn't be here. Thank you very much.
Okay. Go ahead. You're next. Have you got the button? Yeah, there we go. Yep. Try it again. There we go.
My name is Dorcas Wheeler. I'm an in-home support caregiver to my best friend. Met this lady in college in the early 70s, and at that time she was a very vibrant mother of two. She's gotten very, very ill in the last 30 years that I've known her, and she doesn't have too much dignity left. She's on oxygen, her bones are deteriorating. Just this year, her left leg broke just by walking around. She recouped for 6 months, and her right foot broke. She's in extreme, excruciating pain. The only thing she wants is to live in her own home. That's all she wants. That's all she wants. Please help me keep her in her own home. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorcas. We're gonna go back to the mobile mic. Oh. There we go.
My name is Benita Munoz, and this is my son Tobin that I take care of. He was born with a disability. He has cerebral palsy, seizure disorders, and mild retardation. And he chooses to stay in the home because it's the only home he's ever known. And these cuts that you're proposing, he's 22, and if he was not disabled, he would be out on his own like his brothers and sisters. But seeing he can't take care of himself, he has to be cared for 24/7, that these cuts, if he didn't get someone to cook for him, clean for him, bathe him, take him to the bathroom every 2 hours because he's incontinent, and see that he's safe because he falls and he tries to do things he can't do. Him and I, because I'm a single mom, I've been a single mom his whole life, and if we lose this program, him and I would be homeless and out on the streets. So we're begging of you to not do away with this program and keep the vital programs that they need to stay safe in their home. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tobin.
Okay, Jay.
Hello, my name is Jason Floyd. I'm the guy who fell down. Not the first time, but the first time this week. Yeah.
As long as you're okay.
Thank you. I would like to say thank you very much to you and the board, because I don't think the majority of our people understand how lucky and privileged we are to be an American citizen and be able to have this type of platform to talk to you and have you hear what we're saying and have some type of reaction. Very good feeling. I am thankful to have such services as the IHSS, because when I was originally hurt, I, of course, wasn't even thinking clearly, let alone even thought about how I could care for myself. And my father, who was at the time suffering from COPD, he had to go into AHSS too, because he was on oxygen. And I was living with him at the time of his diagnosis. And he was caring for me, which was really...
Can I do?
Go ahead.
And I stepped in to the picture when Jason's dad could no longer care for him, for Jason's dad was his live-in at that time. I stepped in to do the house cleaning, clean the toilets for 2 men, one disabled and one dying of COPD. At that time, Jason's dad became severely ill where he could no longer take for him. The assessments that in-home support did said, you know what, you're going to need help yourself. He was on oxygen, Jason's dad, full-time. He ended up dying to the disease of COPD along with Jason's mother 4 months later, which was separated at that time. Jason's 2 siblings live in LA. It's a brother and sister. So there was Jason left alone. I was only coming in to clean toilets. I had 2 boys, a single mom. I needed a job. I got off the welfare reform system and I wanted to learn how to support myself. I didn't want no welfare check that was only $596 or $486. How am I going to live that? You know, I found that it took me a long way to figure out that I needed to work to make more money. So I got a job, and it was a job that goes more beyond, way beyond of taking care of Jason. There's feelings involved. There's, I mean, what he gets from SSI cannot pay his rent, bills, PG&E, water, and I'm trying to feed my kids at the same time. I am so grateful that I finally got heard today, because I brought Jason up here from Sonoma County today at 4:30 with my mother. My mother is 69 years old. She works she does the domestic chores. How is my mom going to get a job out there taking care of somebody? Tell me, how is my mom, who's going to hire a 69-year-old lady? I'm going to be 50 years old this year. I want to thank you so much for listening to all this today. And thank you for the concern for my client, especially when he fell. Because if Jason doesn't fall, he will never get back up. Because when he was in a coma in Indonesia and a U.S. citizen, they flew him from Singapore to get the health care he needed. So he came out of the coma. They said, you would never walk, Jason. He was determined. Look at Jason walks now, but there's a lot of things. He can't use his hands. He can't feed himself. He lost his arm at 5 years old due to cancer. Cancer. They told him, dude, they didn't have the knowledge that they have today. They said, I'm sorry, 5 years old, can you tell your child, I'm sorry, we got to take your arm because you have cancer or you're going to die? I can't tell my son that. So then where is Jason going to be at today if this is all taken away from him? Because his brother and sister live in L.A. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Jason. You're a brave man.
Thank you.
And a cool guy. Bye, Tobin.
My name is Stan Mishanitz. I'm from Sebastopol, California. I'm a small businessman, and I paid taxes for about 50 years in California. And I believe that you should stop cutting the lowest paid people in our economy. So you let them go. I think you should keep them. They spend their money to keep the economy going. And besides that, these people are needed to help people who cannot do for themselves. And also, it keeps them off the street. They have a job. Otherwise, the state's going to have to pay them anyway some money because they'll be paying them welfare. So it's better to have them working than being on welfare. That's all. Thank you for hearing me. Oh, and also, IHSF is needed for the people of California. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time.
Alex Graves, Alzheimer's Association. We urge you to reject these cuts. I would just say that, someone with Alzheimer's or dementia oftentimes can't even remember the names of their loved ones or where they live. So the prospect of them having unmet needs, grocery shopping, cleaning their homes, things like that are just not things that they can do themselves. And you're putting families in a position where they either have to reduce or quit their jobs or put their loved one in a nursing facility. And so please don't put families in that situation where they have to make that choice. And I also just want to thank you for taking the time to hear everyone who came here today.
Are we ready? Frank Welty from the California Council of the Blind. I stand in support of the concerns that have been expressed by the many members of the public here today, and I also concur with the issues that were raised by the stakeholder panel earlier this morning. I want to speak specifically about item number 6, the physician endorsement requirement. We are concerned about that because, as Deborah Doctor said, it's not appropriate to require physicians to make decisions about functional evaluations. That's not where their training is. And I can tell you, as a person with a disability, and I'm sure that other people with disabilities would agree with me, that while doctors may know a lot about the pathology of disease and about treatment modalities and about possible medications, they are not experts on the field of living with disability. Also, I believe that such a requirement will lead to an inconsistent application of this rule. In some cases, you'll have physicians who will be very tough, not appreciating the extent to which individuals need IHSS services, while you'll have other physicians who will be essentially rubber stamps, basically signing every form that comes their way. So you end up having consistent application of this rule. And third, and this is also important, that this rule will increase the administrative burden on an already overburdened Department of Social Services. I was rather amazed this morning when DSS was speaking at the beginning of the hearing about the extent to which they're dealing with unresolved legal questions, about undefined rules, about a need to clarify procedures, and about an overburdened staff to the extent that they're actually asking for additional administrative staff to deal with the red tape. So it seems to me that adding this particular item is completely counterproductive here. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. As always. Last but not least.
Not last. Almost last.
Well, the two of you. He's been waiting patiently, flashing that picture for the last couple hours.
Okay, that's me.
Yeah, that's you.
Okay, my name is Alex, and at Fiscal, California, no cuts we married to. Cannot back down, not right now. But for us.
Thanks, Alex.
And Alexander is my son. He's Alexander Brown. I'm Lisa Brown. Oh. And I decided to make this trip at 5:30 this morning. We drove up from Fresno. I was so rushed I forgot to take my slippers off. But I just could not sit at home. And knowing this is so very important to so many people who can't get here. Well, I can still get here. And I rely on angels watching over me to get us safely home. My last trip up here, I'm sorry to say, I fell asleep 3 times. And once was at 80 miles an hour with cars to the side and behind me.
Alex, keep her awake.
Yeah, he tries. It's like I realized on the freeway I was going 40 miles an hour. I can't have caffeine. I have serious health conditions. I'm only here because of the medical insurance I have from IHSS. Fresno County is kind of a unique place in California. You know, they already have on the books to cut us to $8 an hour. They just discovered they need to find $30 million to fund their retirement benefits that just keeps skyrocketing through the roof, just like state of California. And they have asked for concessions. The only thing we have left to give is our health insurance. And I'm with the new rules being proposed by Medi-Cal, I'm afraid it will not keep me alive at this point. You know, you as legislators hold the future of my son and myself in your hands, whether or not I'm going to be able to continue to make my mortgage payments. Right now, I'm in a home that's underwater. I'm losing between $2,000 and $3,000 a month in the value of my home where I live in Fresno. If you go to Zillow.com, they say my mortgage payment should be $425 a month at the current value. I'm paying $900 a month. I wish I could move. I don't have the money to move, but I will be moving if these cuts happen. It's not just 12%. I'm Alex's mom. We're together in the home. When you add in the reduction in domestic and related, it will be horrifying. I have a friend who takes care of her mother, who's 89 with Alzheimer's. She's getting maximum hours right now doing protective supervision for her mother. I calculated the impact where it could potentially put her below the requirement needed for the definition of severe disability, where it would bump her down to the 195-hour level. I roughly estimate 30% reduction to her if the domestic and related is removed. You know, we are, as the aged and disability community, are looking to you. We're looking to you because there's been a commitment made in California to keep them in our communities, to help them thrive in the community, and that's where they belong. Don't succumb to the promise for quick fixes at our loved ones' expense. Don't unravel their supports. People have fought for too long. Dylan Thomas, that I'm going to read you one stanza from. His father had been a robust military man most of his life. And when in his 80s he became blind and weak, his son was disturbed seeing his father become soft or gentle. In this poem, Thomas is rousing his father to continue being the fierce man he had previously been. That's exactly how I feel today and why I came up here today. Our legislature has been fierce and passionate in supporting disability people and the elderly in the state of California. I am begging you, I am trying to rouse you to realize that you need to say no. We've got to find another way. And this is what the last stanza of Dylan Thomas's wonderful poem of "Do not go gentle into that good night. And you, my father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light." And that's my message to you in the legislature. Do not let these cuts happen. Rage and say no. And I thank you for taking the time to hear all of us today.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown. Well worth the trip for us. Alex, you've got a jewel there. You better take care of her.
He does. He's going to help keep me awake. That's the other thing. Did I tell you that already?
Yes, you did.
Yes. Okay.
All right. Thank you for the
try
trip.
And keep me up.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad we get a chance to hear from you. That's our last speaker. I don't think I could take another one like her. So we're done. As I've said, we left most of the items open. We're going to continue to work with the department and roll our sleeves up to do everything we can. With that, we're adjourned. Thank you all.